think the most important thing for me making this film was that I wanted it to be able to appeal to people who've never heard of Space 1999, even people who are not science fiction fans at all. And I wanted it. One of the, I'll tell you the biggest surprise I've had are the people who watched this who said, I can show this to my wife, or I could show this to my friend, and they'll finally understand me. Okay, that's been a really, really neat aspect, right? It's like I feel like I was speaking not just for myself, but to so many of us, and it's people all around the world. It's not just this is a really big deal. That period, 50 years ago or so, there was a different trajectory, and we kind of lost that vision, and there's a sadness around that, and everything. So it's been a real honor to be able to put this together and pull it together and make it happen. When I started down this path, I think some of the people were Space 1999 fans, for example. They were like, "Why is William Shatner in this?" And I had some pushback about that sort of thing. But I was like, "Hey, just be patient. You'll understand when you see it." So, yeah. So, any other questions, comments? I'm happy to talk about any aspect of this. Yeah.
One question I got for that, the ending with the Peary background, was that shot in Minneapolis?
Yeah, we shot that in Minneapolis. So we're using that new tech, the same tech they use on like a Mandalorian and some of the Star Wars shows and stuff. It's this LED stuff. And so what happened is we spent months building that planet digitally, and then we built all these really screen accurate assets that were based on Space 1999 stuff. And then we were able to build that. And so I spent like half a day just shooting scenes, walking around this landscape. And the scene earlier in the film with the hangar, where I was walking in the hangar, that was done the same way, which was pretty clear. Yeah, that's how we did that. So it was all, so, I mean, one of the things that I'm also doing with this is kind of a little secret Trojan horse is I want ITV, who own the Space 1999 rights, to see what we could do, because you think about it nowadays, the scope of what you could do with showing Moonbase Alpha and all that sort of thing it'd be enormous. It could be like you could literally see them walking around in a hangar. It's not just a miniature, right? But I also would like to do, as you saw in the film, I want to do miniatures. I wouldn't come back and bring the show back without using miniatures again, and But I think there's a way to mix new school and old school. So when you watch the second documentary that we did, the Beyond the Eagle session, there's a big sequence in there that's going to be all about the visual effects bit. We spent 2 days, and I actually had this crew of young guys who, 20s and 30s, who had never done anything with miniatures. They had no idea, and they come from the standpoint of like, well, can't you just CG it? That was the term and I actually was like, nope, we're going to use miniatures, and we're going to build this landscape and put it together. And I started teaching them how to do it while we did it, and it was a really interesting experience. And by the time we were done, they were like, this is so cool. We were all tired, but they couldn't believe that we could catch it in camera. They're so used to everything being done in post. So that was cool. Yeah. Other questions?
I love that you use Steve Miller fly a lot of Eagle. He's kind of spacey sounding.
Yeah.
And you, as we are similar to the same age. I have a lot of young people ask me, what was it like back in the 60s and 70s? And my honest to God answer is, it was further in the future.
See, it's funny. I have this opinion. I didn't say it in the film, but I honestly think that humanity hit its peak about the time we went to the moon. And I think we're actually declining right now. And it's up to us now to make a choice to head in the other direction, right? And I think that I would honestly trade smartphones and iPads and all that stuff to have one of the sci-fi visions that they had, where like Space 1999. Clearly, they had computers that would take up city blocks, right? I'd rather have city block computers and have that future than these phones. At this point, that's honestly. Because I think we lost something, and it's but I don't think it's too late, and I do think we can change course. And that's a big part of what I wanted to do with this. And the other thing is, I didn't want to make a film that was griping. I didn't want to make a film that was negative. I didn't want to make a film where it felt like some sort of victimhood or negativity. It's like, hey, we got to be positive, got to figure this out. I also wasn't trying to be pie in the sky with it either. So that's part of why I enjoy the conversation I have with Shatner so much, because we did kind of go there. Yeah.
When do you think we will get up to Space 1999? I don't know.
Well, I mean, right now, I feel like we're headed to Mad Max level. It'd be my second day. I don't know. I mean, I just think, we've got a lot of choices to make, if we're gonna head in the right direction with this thing. So I think it's possible to change course and do it, but we have to choose to do it. So I can't answer that without having the decision. We have to see the one thing that's missing, and I don't care what anyone, I'm personally, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm an independent voter, politically, whatever. I'm in the middle. Okay. I think that there are attributes that are positive on all sides. I don't agree with a lot of the things that I see happening in certain things and certain spheres on all sides. But what I will say is this: we have to come together. We have to decide that we're going to move forward. And if we don't do that, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. I don't know if you guys know about what's happening with like artificial intelligence right now and things like that. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy what's going on with this. And it's like, if we don't like regulate this sort of thing and think it through, we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. So part of what I'm hoping is like a film like this could actually get people to start talking again. Because again, I feel like we forgot about the future. We forgot there was a future out there. Does that make sense? Like when I talk to a lot of young people, everything's about right now for them. They don't, like when we were kids, you guys might all relate to this. We constantly talked about what's it gonna be like in the year 2000. Okay, me and all my friends used to do that. We were like, when the year 2000, I'm gonna be 32 years old. What's it gonna be like? Right? Because our kids nowadays, they don't think like that. There's no sense of like where are we heading, what are we doing?
There's no horizon to go towards.
There's no horizon. Exactly. We got to give them that horizon again. Everything. Now, the one thing that I loved about working with those kids is that I showed them this 50-year-old TV show, right? And that was risky. There was a part of me that thought those kids were gonna be like, well, this is lame. Or they're used to video games and the speed and pace of the editing nowadays and that sort of thing. A lot of the ADHD type stuff, right? And I'll tell you, the kids ate it up. They loved it. They thought the visual effects were cool. They loved the designs. They loved the sets. They loved the costumes. They went home and watched the episodes and stuff, okay? So that told me something. That said that what we all thought was cool back then is, it wasn't just because of the time. There was actually something there. There was actually something viable and interesting. So I'm really glad that I included the kids in it, not just because they're in the film and people can see it, but actually that I gave them a sense of a future again. They were all shocked by the idea that people used to see the future 50 years ago. Does that make sense? I mean, that was really cool. So yeah. So I would say that was one of the best aspects. Yeah.
How is this going to be distributed?
So here's the thing. We have a challenge ahead of us because we want to enter it. We entered it in the Toronto Film Festival, which is September. That's a big one. And so we won't know for sure if we made it until like August, right? But one of the things that can happen is the more positive press and PR we get around the project, the more TIFF is going to be excited about having this comic be there. So our first step is just to get the word out that this film was made, and hopefully that you guys think it's good, and you share it. That's happening, right? And then in the fall, we are going to all the people who support us this stuff. We're going to give them Blu-rays of it, the download, and that sort of thing. We'll do that, but we're hoping. I've had people tell me that they think some Hollywood people tell me they think that we can end up on a Netflix or an HBO. We have a target to be theatrical. I made this to be seen in a theater. I really tried to keep the scope big and cinematic. So I think we have a meeting with Cinemark Theaters about it also. So we may actually put it directly into the theaters ourselves. So yeah, so we'll know. We're still working on it. We just finished it, so now we got to see what happens distribution-wise. Now the second film, the one that's more fan-centric, here's what happened. Like we had over 30 hours of footage when we shot this, and one of the things that I did, I originally was going to have a lot more about the model builders and the behind the scenes of that stuff, and I realized that mainstream audiences just would not have gotten into it. They wouldn't well, actually, I had a couple of people see it, earlier versions of the film. They were like, this is about a bunch of old guys with models. That's what they said. And I was like, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's why I'm making a second film. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But here's the thing. I wanted, again, to people who didn't care to be able to watch this movie. So what I did is I made a second film. We're making a second film, and that's what the Beyond the Eagle session is. And that's going to be much more all about model building and collecting and that sort of thing. So, and you'll see scenes that we shot here in Wonderfest 2 years ago. There's a bunch of stuff with that. So it's going to be the film for the people who are really into the models and collecting and art. So we're going to have fan art in there. It's going to all kinds of stuff. So that one will be between 45 minutes and an hour. So, yeah.
Are you worried about a reboot if they do it and they like fumble it? Like it?
Well, here's the thing. So I've actually met with the owners twice about a reboot. The first time they loved the idea, but they're like, yeah, we're not ready to do this right now. The second time I met with them, I got really close. But they had just done the Cowboy Bebop TV series that was on Netflix that really flopped, and they lost a ton of money on that. They had tried to reboot another show called UFO that was a Jerry Anderson series, which is my favorite TV series of all time. And the UFO, nobody wanted it, right? So they had this really bad taste in their mouth about a reboot, and they had done reboots earlier of The Prisoner that didn't work. The Prisoner is a fantastic show, which should have been rebooted at all. And then also, what was it? Thunderbirds, which was awful what they did with that. So, see what I'm saying? So they did. So I met with them, and they did tell me, if we do look at a reboot, you'd be the first guy we talk to. They did tell me that. So I'm hoping this movie will help to push them in the direction. But the one thing I don't want to do, nothing against Disney, but I don't want to Disney it. That's the thing. Because when I watch a lot of this, actually I can't watch a lot of the Disney Star Wars stuff. You just cringe, and everything. Andor was awesome, but a lot of the rest of it is just like, So I want this to be mature and well done and just a great story, not a political agenda, all that kind of thing. So hopefully, I've got a great idea for a story. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think they would bring you on? Like,
yeah, I mean, I've got production experience to do it, and I've got teams that can do it. I think we proved by building that cockpit. I'm not going to do that, So there's enough there to show ITV that we could make this film, a TV series. I'm saying. So the other thing too that people don't understand is if you're remaking a TV series from 50 years ago, you have an obligation because yes, we have a core group of fans. That core group of fans is not going to be enough to justify spending, between $100-200 million on a TV show. You know what I mean? So you have to find a way to have the series meet and work people who are nowadays who never heard of it and everything too. Plus they have the problem. There's an inherent problem with the show, which is called Space 1999. And so then you go, well, what are you going to do? Call it Space 2099? And we're going to do that a few years ago. They told me they're not doing that. They don't like that idea. So I pitched them some ideas that had to do with parallel realities and different things. And, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, Corey, for what you mentioned, if there is a reboot, would it be like in the same vein as the reboot of Battlestar Galactica and this reboot?
I would say that's closer to what I would do. I mean, if you talk to, some of the research I did, Jerry Anderson, when he originally created the idea, he and Sylvia for Space 1999, they did not plan. Well, first off, it was supposed to be a second season of the show UFO, and then they decided to go in a different direction. But they were originally going to have the Earth have a disaster, and the moon was just going to be there and the Earth would be messed up, right? Which is what I think you should do with the story. You tell a story like that. And so no moon flying around the universe and everything, which even when I was an 8-year-old, I was like, how is that doing that? This black out because I was like, this is, and that's one of the problems Space 1999 has, right? It's like, it's got great sets, costumes, cast, all this stuff. Some of the stories are awesome, but the problem is that the core premise is ludicrous. I'm sorry, but it is. And I know that offends some fans when you say that, but it come on. I mean, the moon, it would have to be going faster than the speed of light, way faster, go to another star system, slow down, hang out for a couple of days, and then speed up again. The moon. Okay. That's ridiculous. So I just, yeah.
Would it also, like the original series, would it also tackle various social issues? Some social comments.
See, here's where I am. I'm just think we gotta, can't we just make a good show?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm tired of having shows try to beat me up with teaching me something. It's like I think you could. Okay, a lot of people don't understand. They'll say the original Star Trek was woke. I'm like, well, not really. Okay, the original Star Trek had a backdrop where there was diversity and there was a group of people that were doing things, but that wasn't what the show was about. The show was about other things, and that was the background, right? That's what I would do. As I'd say, hey, you got a group of people over. Obviously, I live a life of diversity. I don't, I'm just being me, right? But I don't care about it. I care about everybody, and all of us getting along and doing what we have to do, So that's the story I'd like to tell. That makes sense?
Yeah,
sir. Yeah.
Well, Paramount was lost a huge amount of money on the new Star Trek series.
Yeah. Yeah.
talk, cast, well, yeah, what he is set for.
I think the best bet for Star Trek would be to just let it rest. That's just me. That's just me. I know people don't agree with me. Some people love it. I can't. It. I don't know. It's not my Star Trek.
It's run its course.
Yeah, I think it's just been running to the ground at this point. Hey, again, my opinion.
So Doctor Who.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a Doctor Who guy, but I'll tell you this: from what I can tell peripherally, I'm like you. Yeah, dude, he'll be bad. Yeah, that's really bad stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that's just my opinions, though. Like I said, I'm not. No, I don't mean any offense to anybody who loves new Star Trek or new, But you ask me what I'm gonna think. I'm gonna tell you what I think. I'll tell you the truth. Yeah. But anyway, that's it. On a positive note, though, I really appreciate everybody watching this and coming out. I know it's a 90-minute movie, but I feel like that's the story that we had to tell, and everything. So there was a lot there, and it was very personal. But how about that Charles Duke? Man, wasn't that awesome? I mean, he was just great, and just seeing aspects like that. It was so cool to get to spend time with him like that and actually learn about that Apollo mission and how it all went down. And the things he told me and said, I'd never heard astronauts saying some of those things, about actually going through concerns and fears and things like that. And his humor around all of it. And that was great. So there were some really magical moments in there. Obviously Nick Cage was here. That was great stuff too. Yeah. Cool. Anything else? All right. Well, that's great. Thank you.